Hi, and welcome to this video. Today we're going to be discussing how to make a medicine wheel. Now, the way that I learned as a child to make a medicine wheel is not going to be the same as every medicine wheel there is. So I wanted to go ahead and discuss a few different versions that you might come across and let you make your decision of which one you're going to model your medicine wheel after when you get to it. Now, this is just one example of a medicine wheel. Now this particular one, it wasn't made 100% correctly because as you can see, the beads don't quite line up the way that they should. I'm going to show you another way shortly. Now, this particular medicine wheel that you see in front of you is the Cree medicine wheel. As you can see, it's focused on the spring, summer, fall, and winter season. That's something that's going to change depending on which Native American culture you're focusing on. Now, again, this one's focused on the Cree, but each culture, each tribe is going to have their own specific ideas of what is supposed to be looking at. Now, each color symbolizes a different thing for each different group. Now, again, since this one's Cree, I wanted to go ahead and compare it to the Navajo medicine wheel. Now, the Navajo medicine wheel, as you can see, isn't the same exact thing and focuses more on different stones to symbolize the different colors. Now, the stones individually have their own meanings as well. It's talking about the seasons, the changes, and the closer you get to the center, the closer you are to the creator. These are the most sacred animals and the ones that are focused on more often than not in mythology. Now, again, as I mentioned, each tribe is going to have their own individual thing. Now, this particular one, like I said, is Navajo. And I wanted to go ahead and show you variations that you might come across in your searches. Now, these variations that you see here are logos for organizations focusing on helping Native American students throughout their studies. Now, we have the Native American Students Association on this top left-hand side, and that one is for UT Arlington. We have the NISA organization at TCU. We have the Urban Intertribal Center, the Native American Indigenous Collective. These are all different organizations that are very helpful for students as they grow. But as you can see, the directions of the colors change depending on which group you're going with. Now this one starts with the red, then goes yellow, then white and black. But if you notice, the bars go in different directions. This one, it starts red, yellow, white, then black, but the bar is going differently than it is over here. Now, this one, it starts with the yellow up top. This one's yellow, white, red, then black. This one goes white, red, yellow, then black. Depending on what location you're talking about, what tribe you're talking about, depends on which one you're going to get. Now, if we compare these right here back to the Cree medicine wheel, this one starts with yellow, then goes red, then black, then white up at the top corner. Now, I wanted to go ahead and bring up one more since this is focused on the school. I wanted to go ahead and point out the one for the American Indian Education Program for here at Fort Worth. If you notice, this one, the directions themselves have changed. This one has changed orientation so that it's slanted, and it is white, then yellow, then red, then black. Now, depending on which one you want to go with, depends on which direction your medicine wheel is going to take when you first work on your medicine wheel. Now, the supplies for this project are very specific. You're going to need tape, a hoop, yellow, black, whites, red, and then you're going to need these. These right here are different beads. Now this one is a hair pipe bead. This is made of bone, or in this particular case, this is made of horn. You may be able to see some of the inconsistencies in colors or size if you stare at them long enough. As you can see, this one's just a little bit thicker than these right here. Now, this one is a medallion made from abalone shell, and abalone shell has been used in a lot of Native American artwork for centuries. So I wanted to go ahead and make sure that you guys could see what specifically you'll be needing. Now, you may also need a small needle depending on what size yarn you get and what size beads you get your hands on. Now, your teacher will be able to provide these for you. If not, you can make sure they ask if you have any beliefs or anything like that that you may not want to participate with this particular material. You may be able to request plastic ones or some alternatives. Now, let's go ahead and get you started. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to select what color you go with. Now, the way that I learned how to do it, I start with the white yarn. Now, when you're starting, you can follow it along exactly the way I do if you'd like, or you can do it yourself and change depending on what tribe you'd like to model yours after. The important part is that regardless of which tribe or which model you're going to go with, that you're very specific on where you got your inspiration from. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tie this off. Now, if you're older, you can go ahead and just start wrapping right now. But if you're younger, or if you have any dexterity issues, or if you're struggling a little bit, maybe you're just trying this for the first time and you keep having it turn like this when you're trying to work, there's a very simple solution, and that is to just take a little bit of tape and tape that little tail down. You don't need a whole lot, just a little strip about this big. We'll go ahead and tape that whole thing down. Now, you're also going to need a pair of scissors, specifically because you're going to want to be able to cut off the excess for this tail as you get to it. That'll just make your life just a little bit easier. Now, when I first start wrapping, one of the first things that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of my yarn in my hand. Now, this may not be the easiest thing for you, but it is what makes it easier for me. Sorry, I was out of view for a second. So I'm going to grab all the yarn in my hand, and I'm just going to start pushing it around like so. So you're just wrapping it around over and over until you get to the quarter mark. Now, if you want to, you can go ahead and you can mark it with tape or with a Sharpie marker, and just make a little line at the end right here, straight across, and then straight across. Now, I'm going to go ahead and continue wrapping, and I'll come back to you when it's time to change colors. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and filled up this 1/4 of the hoop. I also marked off my quarter sections so I can ensure that I don't go any further than this actual 1/4 mark. Now, for this portion, I'm going to go ahead, and because I'm wrapping backwards, I'm going to pull the string forward over the top, reach through the loop, through the hoop, and then pull it through. Now, what this is going to do is going to make a little knot like that. And again, I'm going to pull it forward, through the loop, through the hoop, then up. Now, let's say you're doing it and you're wrapping the opposite direction. Now, if you've been wrapping this way the entire time, let's say you've been wrapping like so, so in those cases, what you could do is you would go ahead and you'd crisscross over the top, through the loop, and then pull it tight. Now, when you're ready to switch to the next color, I'm just going to adjust this right here, and as you can see, it slides along. Make sure that you're pulling it nice and tight, and you leave a little bit of a tail. Not much, just a little bit. You can go ahead and cut that loose. You're going to take your next color. Now, in this case, I'm going to be going directly into yellow, and I'm going to go ahead and start by tying this off right over the top of that tail. This is very important as it helps to blend your lines together. Now you can just tie it once, tie it twice, and then you can either start wrapping as it is, or you can go ahead and tape it down once again. Now, as you're wrapping, you may come across a few difficulties. This exact same technique, when it comes to changing into the yellow, works exactly the same if you have a tangle in your yarn and you need to go ahead and redo it or something like that. You just go ahead, tie it off, tie the knot, and put the next string on, and then tape it down. Now, once you tie the knot on there and tape it down, it's not really going to budge too much. You can still adjust a little bit to fill in the blanks as needed. Now, I wanted to go ahead and show you another way that some people like to wrap the yarn. Again, I like to get the entire amount and wrap it around. Now, the way that you can do this is you can go ahead and just start wrapping 3 and 4 and then pull through. Now, I recommend this one only if you're having trouble with the other way, because as you can see, when you do the first wrap, it already starts wrapping on the back, but going the opposite direction. So you can't just scoot this up to the end. So you don't want to do more than about 4 at a time. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I wanted to go ahead and show you this one because some of you might have an easier time doing it this way than having all the yarn bundled together. 2, 3, and 4. Now, I'm going to go ahead and keep going all the way around, and then when I reach each of my markers, I'm going to change color. So I'm going to start with white, and then I'm going to go yellow, red, and then black. When I reach the top, I'm going to go ahead and come back on and show you how to go ahead and finish this off. Okay, so as you can see, I went all the way around and I tied the first knot right here. Now, I always make sure to go ahead and go with 2 knots. And as I said, when you're going the opposite direction, you want to pull it up, over, and through. And you always want to make sure that you go with at least 2 knots up at the top to make sure that it's nice and tight. Now you're going to go ahead and pull this through. Make sure that it's nice and tight and covering up any white space that's left over. Now, as you can see, there's still a little bit of white there, so I'm going to go ahead and go over it one more time, just to ensure that my black lines are nice and neat. Okay, now it's okay if just a little bit shows, but you want to make sure that you've filled up most of the space, and the line should go all the way across. Now, you do not want to be cutting this off just yet, because we want to go ahead and start adding our beads. Now, one of the things you're going to discover is that the yarn is a little bit too thick to just push through the bead in and of itself. So you want to make sure, first, you're going to put run your fingers over the yarn and make sure that you don't have any knots tucked into the yarn. If you do, go ahead and cut beneath the knot to make sure that you have a nice, smooth piece of yarn to work with for the next portion. Now, one easy way to go ahead and make sure that you can get through this is you can put it down a piece of tape, stretch your yarn out across the edge of the tape, fold the tape in half, and then go ahead and just cut along the outside edge of the tape. And what this does is it basically makes a teeny tiny little needle that's mostly just wrapped around the yarn to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. So this should allow you to be able to just go ahead, fold this, twist if you need to. Twisting can help sometimes, but you should be able to just press it right through the end of your bead. Again, if it's too loose, you can go ahead, or it's a little too big, you can go ahead and twist the tape just a little bit more to make it a little bit tighter to get through. Now this particular end is being problematic, so I'm just going to snip that off, and that should go ahead and push through now. So now you can go ahead and put 2 beads onto your yarn. So if your bead gets stuck, you can go ahead and give the yarn a little bit of twist in the same direction that you twisted the tape, and that should allow it to go and channel right through. So once you get the 2 pieces onto the yarn, you're going to go ahead, go through, and you're going to go all the way across, and you're going to just go ahead and tie that off nice and tight onto your medicine wheel. So at this point, you're just going to go ahead and tie this off completely. You're not going to leave this dangling there. You want to make sure that the yarn is nice and tight and not super loose. Make sure it's nice and tight right there. You can go ahead and tie it off with one extra knot, just around, through the loop, and done. Now I recommend going ahead and cutting a small tassel so you can add something onto there later. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and tie this end of the string, the new end, the one that I just cut, onto one side. So I have my tape still over here. I'm going to go ahead and slide the next bead onto my yarn. And again, you can always just give it a little twist if it's causing you issues, and that should help you get it right onto the yarn. See, there it is, right up the end. Now don't worry about centering it just now. You just want to make sure that you go directly across, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to add your second bead to the other side. Now at this point, you can go ahead and just tie this one off. Make sure that they're both nice and tight. Just like so. Now once you have tied this off, and again, make sure that it's nice and tight. You don't want your yarn to be yarn to be loose. Once you have tied this off of the knot, you're going to go ahead and go to your medallion bead. That's the one, the abalone shell that I showed you before. You're going to go ahead, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go up through the bead. Correction. You're going to go down through the bead, through the eye of the bead, now this might take a little bit of struggle because, as you can see, it's sometimes the hole is a little bit smaller than your yarn, but you can get it through there. There we go. Now this time I'm going to go between, you have the top layer, as you can see, you have the top layer and the bottom layer of these beads. You're going to go ahead and go around both layers, back up, and through the bead a second time. Now going through the back is very important at this point. So when you first start, you're going to go down through the top, and then you're going to go back, and you're going to go out. And then you're going to go ahead and just pull these nice and tight. Pull it tight, and then tie a knot. Now this one's just a regular old knot. It's going to go ahead and put that through the center. And then you're going to go ahead and just pull your tassels and cut them shorter. Now at this point you can go ahead and add feathers. For the most part, your medicine wheel is all finished. If you have any feathers, you can add feathers or tassels. I personally am going to be adding one feather down here, and I'll be with you in just a second so you can see how that looks like. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and added a couple of feathers right here. Now I went ahead and added mine behind the medallion instead of the front, but you can add yours as you see fit, because as you remember from the very beginning, depending on what tribe and what group you're focusing on, depends on what direction and where you're going to put your feathers. But in this particular case, as you're not actually affiliated with the group, you're not really going to be expected to know what the feathers stand for each individual group. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you can be able to make your own medicine wheel. Please make sure that you're giving credit where credit is due in terms of which tribes you're learning from. We want to make sure to share and learn from each individual group rather than to take what belongs to them. Make sure you're giving credit no matter which way you go about it. Have a great day.